Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story about an evil and, on the one hand, charismatic beggar. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I'm hungry. Food? You be. I'm walking outside just now when I saw a man laying on the ground. It's a very hot day and I was worried, so I paused my audiobook and took off my headphones. Me. Are you okay? Man. No, I'm not okay. I'm hungry. Don't take pictures. I wasn't taking any pictures. I'm so hungry. Would you like me to buy you something to eat and drink? Money. I want money. Can you give me some money? Now, due to the pandemic, I stopped carrying cash, so I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any money on me, but I can buy you something to eat. How selfish, you lying bee! Don't take pictures of me, I'll sue you! I didn't take pictures of you. All you bees with your TikToks always taking pictures. Take pictures of your pets. F you. I started walking away. Ma'am, how dare you walk away from me? I'm hungry, ma'am! I was afraid he was going to stand up and start chasing me, so I ran away. I feel bad, it's a terribly hot day, I wanted to help, but I can't handle this kind of behavior, and I don't want to. And our next story. I told you there was one rule. This story begins with myself and my dog in the back seat, to which we'd been banished because the inside of my house was being painted. Dogs and wet paint are a thing that do not mix well at all, and bath time for my pupper is akin to all-out war. I'd say the nuclear option, but that's reserved for when we must don the cone of shame. While we were outside killing time, waiting for the house to be dog-safe again, I discovered I very much had to go to the bathroom, and since my backyard is pretty well secluded and only visible really from above or by someone who's way up into my yard, I decided to go then and there. After the sight of satisfaction and before the stream had finished, I heard a very high-pitched whining sound, and when I looked up to see what the sound was, I saw a quad-rotor drone floating above my backyard, presumably watching me. I don't really have a shy bladder, so I finished what I was doing, put myself away, and went back to my regularly scheduled dog entertainment programming. Later that day, after dinner, there was a knock on my door, and upon opening it, I saw a very uncomfortable-looking police officer. He asked if I could step outside to speak with him, and I did so. He then asked me if I'd urinated in my yard recently, and when I raised an eyebrow, I sort of looked at him like, seriously? He clarified that someone had called in and reported me for doing so, and the report has to be investigated since I live close to a school. Close as the crow flies, there's a patch of swamp between my house and the school that's not easily navigable. With a car, it's closer to a mile actually to get there. I confirmed that I had and showed the officer where I'd done so, and then told him the only people that had seen me was my dog and someone flying a drone over my backyard, and I was reasonably sure that my dog hadn't phoned the police on me. The officer thanked me for my explanation and said I was very likely not in trouble, but he'd take it as a favor if I just used the toilet for the time being. The next day, my dog was in the dog run by himself, sun-worshipping while I was working. I had the door open in case he started barking at neighbors or what have you. Suddenly, he loses his fiercest war cry and starts making distress noises. I look outside and see what's going on, and there's a quadrotor buzzing around my dog run, tormenting my poor dog. I do what anybody should do in that situation and grab my hose, set the nozzle to anti-aircraft, high-pressure jet for the uninitiated, and zap the drone with the hose. Drone ceases operation and falls to the ground in my dog run. It had been chewed on a little bit before I reclaimed the thing, but it seemed fine. I took my dog and the drone inside and figured I'd hear from someone sooner or later. About an hour or so later, my doorbell rings and there's a 12 or 13-year-old kid on my steps with a bike helmet on and his bike thrown into my garden. I ask if I can help him and he demands that I return his drone. I ask him why should I, when all he's done with it in my experience is harass me. He starts foot stomping and throwing a shrieking tantrum. My cousin, who's 7, had grown out of throwing many moons ago, demanding I give the drone back now. He actually concluded with, "And that's final." I found that frankly adorable and started laughing. I told him to come back with a parent if he wanted the drone back, because he's not capable of acting like a grown-up for this conversation and went back into my house. The kid actually tried and failed to destroy some of my garden before picking his bike up and going home. Around 6 that evening, there's another knock at the door, and the kid's back with a man who's a little bit older than I am. I think he knew his kid was full of it because he sheepishly asked me if I'd robbed his son and stolen his drone. I smirked a little bit at this and told him exactly what his son had done with that drone and how it happened to come into my possession. His face couldn't decide between chagrin and fury, and he turns and asks his son if that's really what happened. The son just starts bawling because he knows he's caught, and the dad says, "When I bought you that drone, I said there was one rule. You don't bother people with the drone." The dad apologizes on his son's behalf and says I can keep it. The kid emits a squawk of indignation and fury and says, "I'm telling Mom." There's a bit of a scuffle between them while the dad wrangles the kid back into the vehicle they arrived in, and then the dad comes back and gives me his cell number with instructions to text him if his ex-wife should darken my doorstep. I said I would and waved goodbye, mostly to needle the kid because the twerp had it coming. A few days later, around lunchtime, I heard an ominous bang sound followed shortly after by pounding on my front door, not knocking, pounding. As I got closer to the door, I could hear high-pitched shrieking, and I connected some dots. Before opening the door, I found the drone dad contact in my phone and texted, "I think she's here." Then I opened my door and was greeted with the sight of an extremely irate, slightly younger than usual Karen. When the woman sees me, she starts screaming at me for stealing from her precious boy and how I'm just the worst human being to grace the face of the earth in her estimation. She got quite the head of steam worked up, and I can see almost immediately that I'm not allowed to talk, so I decide to pour gasoline on the fire and send a follow-up text. "I can see why you got a divorce." Right when I hit send, this woman slaps the phone out of my hand and onto the ground and demands I look at her while she's talking to me. I go for a non sequitur and say, "At me." This startles the Karen long enough for me to clarify, talking at me, this isn't a conversation. It's worth noting that this was about 12:30 p.m. and the woman had Merlot breath so strong I felt like I was getting a buzz just by being yelled at by her. She lets out a squawk and starts to puff up like a blowfish, readying another verbal salvo when I hold up a finger, stoop to grab my phone, and then speed dial the police non-emergency line on my phone because it's pretty obvious how this is going to go. When she demands to know who I'm calling, I tell her calmly that I'm calling the police. Her response was, and this is a direct quote, "Effing good. Let's see how the pigs deal with a mosquito D weasel like you who steals from children." The operator actually heard that, and bless this woman's heart, she actually said, "I think I understand the nature of your call. Can you give me the address where this is happening?" I did, and the operator thanked me and said a response was on the way. While I was talking to the operator, I got a reply from the dad. "Oh God, tell me she's not drunk." Deciding I didn't need my phone slapped out of my hand again, I just sent a thumbs down reply to the text and settled in to get yelled at incoherently until backup arrived. It wasn't all that long incoming, maybe 5 minutes total, before the boys in blue showed up. It wasn't until they pulled up that I noticed this woman had missed my driveway and actually winged my mailbox pulling up onto my lawn. The police separate us, and I actually wind up talking to the cop who urged me to use the toilet like a civilized human being. I tell my side of the story, then the officer I was talking to goes to assist the other officer who was trying to figure out what Karen was going on about because she's getting steadily more belligerent and violent. She winds up slapping one cop and trying to bite the other before she's restrained and bundled into the back of one of the cruisers. At this point, the dad is pulled up and looks completely aghast, but he does confirm my side of the story with the police. The officers thank me and the dad for our time and promise a tow truck's coming for the woman's vehicle. And they put their heads together and do police things. And the dad leaves to go and do whatever it was he was doing before Karen reared her ugly head. I did get the last laugh, though. While the police were filling out forms or whatever it is police do after a horror show like this, I zipped into my house and grabbed the slightly chewed and no longer damp drone. Making sure Karen was watching, I sauntered over to my trash cans and tipped the piece of junk in and dusted my hands off before walking back inside. I'd already confirmed the drone was dead from getting hosed. I was going to throw it out either way. This just made me happy. Update. Karen actually spent money on a private detective to follow me around for 2 days. Lucky Sod got the easiest job on the planet. Once she knew what my daily habits were like, I don't go out often, #quarantine life, she took it upon herself to actually follow me anytime I went out, but never so close. Why did she do this? To gather evidence that would discredit me as a witness in her upcoming custody case. Suffice to say, Karen was a very naughty girl and broke just about every bail restriction she had to do what she did, and is now remanded to jail awaiting trial on a plethora of charges. Update 2. All charges against Karen have been dropped. She's been remanded to an involuntary stay at a state mental health facility. She does need some time in a nice, safe, padded room. She's not allowed to actually be in the same room as her kid for fear of his safety, which I've decidedly mixed feelings about. Responsible dad has permanent custody of the kid until Karen's been declared safe to re-enter society, or however you term someone who was once nuttier than squirrel crap being let back into the general population. Hopefully she gets her head back on straight and leaves me the hell alone. Ah yes, great idea, Karen. First you assault OP in their own home, and then you assault not one, but 2 police officers. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.